presentation. So let's and the first thing that I would like to mention for those of you that don't yet know CALDO is just to explain briefly what is CALDO. So CALDO is a platform, is basically an office that was created by 10 universities in Canada to assist students from Latin America. So we only work with people that are from Latin America. Our universities decided to create this office to assist students that are interested in doing master and PhD programs at any of the CALDO universities. And basically what we do is we provide information on programs and admission requirements. But I will talk a bit more about that in the next slides. Like I mentioned, we work only in Latin America, but not all countries. We have agreements with specific countries. So you can see in this slide the countries where we work. Basically, we decide to work in a particular country based on the scholarship program from the country. So what we do is we establish partnerships with agencies that provide scholarships from each of the countries that are our partners. And then we assist candidates from that country that are considering to bring a scholarship from their home country, or eventually that are considering to study in Canada using their own funds, and also using Canadian scholarships. However, our service is more comprehensive for people that are thinking on bringing their own funding, either through a scholarship or through their own savings. The CALDO universities are the ones that you see in this slide. So like I mentioned, we are now 10 universities, 10 Canadian universities. Just out of curiosity, Canada has a group called the U15 that are the 15 biggest universities in terms of research. So CALDO has 2/3 of that group. The universities that you see here, some of them you might know. I'm not going to focus on the universities today. That's a totally different presentation. Today we will be focusing on how to successfully apply to a master and a PhD program. So if you want to know more about our universities, you can either go to our website or check out previous webinars that we have online in YouTube that talk about the universities. Just as a recap, for those of you that are not familiar with the Canadian academic system, once you do your licenciatura or your bacharelado, you are able to apply for a master program in Canada. So if you have a licenciatura or a bacharelado in your home country, you are most likely able to apply to a master's degree in Canada. Master degrees in Canada are of two types. One is thesis-based master, that it's a master with research, and the other is the course-based master, that it's the master where you only go to the courses. You only take classes, and that's it. You might do a small project at the end, but there is no research project. Most of the funding, if you are interested, is only available for the thesis-based master. So only programs that involve research are able to receive funding. The course-based masters, so course-based masters are, for example, MBAs, Masters of Public Health. All the Masters of Engineering are offered in the two modalities, so with research and without research. So there's a huge variety of course-based master programs. You also have professional programs, sometimes in very specific areas like networks in the field of information technology. So some very specific programs sometimes are only offered as course-based master programs, while thesis-based master programs are most of the programs that the universities offer. Once you have your master's degree, your mestrado or your maestria, you are able to apply to a doctoral program, to a PhD. Admission to a PhD directly from a pregrado, from a licenciatura, it's very unlikely. Okay, so you need to keep in mind that if you have licenciatura from your home country, it's very hard to gain admission into a PhD right away. Usually the professors, they would like to see the student having a master, or at least having evidence that they know how to do research, or at least have experience on how to do research. The PhD programs, they take around 4 to 5 years. Most of the scholarships from our partner countries, they cover the tuition costs, so the taxas escolares, up to 4 years. Okay, so you can study a PhD up to 4 years with the scholarship from most of our partner countries. For master degrees, the scholarships and the program usually last around 2 years. So what does CALDO do for anyone that contacts us? So the first thing that you need to know is that our services are entirely free. So you don't have anything to contact CALDO or to get some guidance from us. Something that we do with everyone that contacts us is give them an idea of the type of programs that our universities offer, and also how to apply to the program. What are the admission requirements, tests that you need, what are the minimum grades, language tests, how does it work. So all of that we can give you an idea for any program within our 10 universities. If you are considering to bring a scholarship from your home country, and I would like to highlight, you just need to be considering, okay? You don't need to have the scholarship, because for most scholarships you need the admission letter from the university. So you just need to consider applying for the scholarship from your home country. We can also assist you in getting in touch, contacting a supervisor. And we will talk a bit more about that during the presentation. Okay, now that you hopefully have an overview of what we do, let's now focus then on which are the key aspects that you need to take into account when you are thinking on applying to a master or a PhD program. So the first thing, and like I mentioned in a previous slide, is making sure that you have the previous degree that it's required for the program that you are applying. So if you are applying to a master program, you need to have a bacharelado, a licenciatura. If you are applying to a PhD, you should have a master degree. Usually people can still apply if they are close to completing their degree. So for example, let's imagine that you are 2 months away from finishing your master degree. Most of your grades are already available, so you are able to calculate your academic average. So usually with that information you can already apply to the program. One of the things that a lot of candidates think that they need is the diploma. So the document that has your name, that says your degree. You don't need that document. What you need is this, the transcript. The transcript is the certificado de notas. Okay, o histórico de notas. That's the key document for the academic side of things. So because the universities will use that document to get an idea of which is your academic average. Talking about the academic average, it's good for you to have an idea of which is usually the range that candidates need to have to apply to PhDs or master programs. For you to have an idea, and since the score from the different programs varies, what you have there is an example from the different countries. The easiest way to calculate is to translate your academic average into a percentage. If your academic average is higher than 75%, it's likely that you will meet the minimum requirement for the programs from our universities. Ideally, if it's higher than 80%, that would be the ideal situation. Some programs, depending on how many people are interested in studying, have higher averages than others. So they are not all the same. So for programs that have a lot of people that are interested, obviously the academic average is higher. So the easiest way is you take your promedio. So for example, let's imagine that you are from Mexico and your scale is from 0 to 10. If you have an 8, you know that you have 80%. If you have an 8.8, 88%, and so on, obviously. The other systems is exactly the same thing. You just take the score that you have and see what is the percentage on the scale that your country uses, and that's it. Language test. Most of you, if you've studied in your home country, you have not studied in English or in French. Because of that, you are required to take a language test. The language tests that are the most common in our universities are the TOEFL or the IELTS. The TOEFL basically is the version IBT. The IBT is the internet-based version. And the IELTS should be the academic version. I know that some candidates have the TOEFL ITP. That's not valid. That test is not good for graduate studies. So you always need to take the one that it's suitable, that it's internet-based test, so the IBT. The TOEFL, usually candidates will need to have a score between 80 and 90 for most programs. Some programs require a bit more than that. Some programs require 100. Some programs even require 107, and the maximum is 120. But it's not very common programs that require more than 100. So most of them are between 80 and 90. And a lot of them are exactly 88. So don't ask me why, but a lot of programs state a TOEFL of 88. In the IELTS, ideally you should have a score between 6.5 and 7.5, because that's where most programs also request the candidates to score. If you are interested in a French-speaking university, so in CALDO we have a French-speaking university that it's Université Laval. So for that university, you should have the DALF or the DELF or the TFI. The TFI is basically the version of the TOEFL but for French. Ottawa also offers programs in French. So if you're interested in the French language, you have these two options, Laval or Ottawa. The language tests, you are not supposed to send the results to the university when you're applying. What usually happens is you get in touch with the language center where you did the test, and they will electronically send the test results to the university. So each university has a code. You give the code to the agency where you did the test, and they will send the results directly to the university. Additional tests. It's not very common, but some programs might require additional tests. Eventually, if you have heard about the GMAT or the GRE, you know these are tests that test reasoning, that test mathematical skills, that test language skills. These are very demanding tests, and they are very hard because they are usually around 4 hours. So it's very important that if the program that you're thinking on applying requires any of these tests, the GRE or the GMAT, you make sure that you prepare yourself correctly to take these tests. You will find these tests in almost all management programs and MBAs, and you might find them also in other programs like computer science, psychology, or physics. Depending on the university, some require these tests, some don't. So it's always a matter of confirming which university requires the test. The good news is that most of the programs don't require these tests. You don't need these tests for most of the master and PhD programs from our universities. Talking about the application process, you need to respect the deadlines. If you are bringing a scholarship from your home country, usually the deadlines are a bit more flexible, because the application period for the scholarships doesn't match with the application period for the universities. And in those cases, the universities open exceptions and they are able to issue admission letters outside of their normal admission dates. However, it's always important to keep in mind the deadlines. In Canada, programs have two main starting dates. September, that's where most programs start, and the other admission period that it's also popular is January. So you can start most of your studies in September, and for that, most of the programs you need to apply between December and March. So let's imagine that you want to apply to September 2019. You should have your application ready to be submitted between usually December 2018 and March 2019. Once again, this requires confirmation because it's not the same for everyone. Some programs might extend more the deadlines, others might reduce the deadlines. They might end, for example, in February. If you are thinking on starting the studies in January, then first of all, you need to make sure that the program admits students in January. Not all admit students in January. And usually the dates for application are mid-year, so between April, June, July, depending on the program. You need to keep in mind that it's not just a matter of applying to the program. Afterwards, if you are accepted, you still need to take care of the study permit. So you need to take care of the immigration issues. And a lot of you will need, for example, to take medical tests. And these things take time. So it's always good to be prepared and do everything with enough time so that you are not stressing out due to lack of time. So far we have looked at which sort of program you needed to attend if you are applying to a master or a PhD, which are the language tests that are the most common, which are seminal tests that you may need, the deadlines. So this is the basics. This is everything that every program will require you to know. Doesn't matter which program you are applying, you need to know these elements. Now, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about supervisors. For any candidate to a PhD, you will need to make sure that you have a supervisor that's interested in working with you before you apply. There is no point in applying to a PhD program if you don't have a supervisor already identified and that has confirmed that is interested in working with you. So one of the first steps is that you browse the programs from the universities and identify the research areas that you are interested and look at the professor's profile in the research areas that you are interested in. This is one of the things that CALDO can assist you with, especially if you are considering to bring a scholarship from your home country. Okay, so we can assist you in this process of finding where you can read about the professor's profile. So for example, all of our websites, and the CALDO website has done a sort of a shortcut to the research areas of different programs, have what it's called a research section for each program. Inside that research section, you will see the research areas. The example that we have here is, for example, biology. They will list different areas: biochemistry, biophysical, cell biology, and so on. Inside each area, you will see the professors that are doing research in this area. And it's your job to basically read about the different professors and do a short list of which are the ones that you would like to get in touch with. So that's basically what looking for a supervisor is all about. We will go a bit more into this in a few slides, but before that, I would like to mention which are overall the documents that every candidate needs to apply. So everyone will need a transcript. The transcript is what I just mentioned at the beginning, the certificado de notas, the histórico de notas. So it's the document where it states the grades that you had in each course. I will give you an example just in the next slide. Language tests, we have talked about them. You know that you need to do a language test if you haven't studied in an English language university before. Statement of research. Statement of research, we will talk more in detail about it. Statement of research in summary is a 1 to 2 page document that you basically write about your research interests, what you would like to do for research, so that you can share this document with the supervisor that you're interested in working with. The CV, that it's basically a summary of what you did so far in terms academically and professionally, and references that are submitted usually online. So usually you need to mention 2 or 3 people that could be your references for academic purposes. So those people can be professors, they can be people that you work with before, and so on. So the transcript is the document that you see here. The transcript is the document that was issued by your university, and that basically states all the courses that you took and the grades. So that's basically it, nothing else. What you need to do is submit the original version, the version in Spanish, Portuguese, and then submit a translated version. The translated version needs to be done by a certified translator. So you need to search for any translator from your own country that is able to translate things from the language of your country into English or French. And once that's done, you are ready. some element of the statement of research. So in the CALDO website, there is a section called Tools to Apply. In the Tools to Apply, you have a lot of information about statement of research and how to contact a supervisor. But I would just like to give you some ideas of what the statement of research needs to have. So the first thing is you should address the professor by its name. So hello, Professor Chris, or greetings, Professor Chris, or dear Professor Chris. You know, any salutation that you find it's formal enough for a letter, but mention the name of the professor. Mention what you have done so far, and these are all short sentences. You don't need to write 2 paragraphs about what you did so far. Just make sure that you highlight the main aspects. If you are applying for a scholarship from your home country, mention that it's extremely valuable for professors. They love students that are looking for scholarships outside of their own research funding. So if that's the case, they will most likely be interested in knowing more about yourself. Let the professors know why you chose them. Articulate your ideas in a clear way. So if you are not familiar in writing in English, try to see if you know someone that might help you with that, or at least run the text through one of the main translators online, like Google Translate or Bing. One of those, usually they do a good job. Explain your ideas in a few paragraphs, your research ideas, and finally, offer the professor a chance to discuss further what you are interested in doing. So a lot of professors will accept to talk to you by Skype, or they will exchange emails with you. So they are used to basically engaging with candidates. So don't be shy. Just make sure that the professor knows that you are available to talk to them. Things not to include in statements of research. So don't send a lot of letters that are exactly the same and that have no that are not related to the professor research interest. So if you are doing research in a particular area, so for example, civil engineering, and you are interested in structures, don't send the research letter to a person that doesn't have anything to do with that area, because they won't read it. Don't wait for an immediate response. So if the person doesn't reply after a week, that's fine. Sometimes they reply after 2 weeks, after 3. They might not be in the office, they might be abroad. However, if they don't give you any notice after 2 weeks, send a reminder email, just something polite and basically asking the person to get back to you because you're really interested in working with that professor. In terms of the CV, the Canadian CV is a very simple CV. So once again, you have information in our website about this tool. The Canadian CV does not have any pictures, does not have any marital status. People don't want to know if you are married, if you have children, like what's your age. That doesn't matter. What they are looking for is information on what is your education, what have you done so far, what are your research interests, if you have experience doing research, if you have published any papers. So all of those things is what you should put at the start of your CV. So just start with the research, start with the education. Professional experience will come in the end, because this is an academic CV. One thing that I would like to highlight is our website. I've been talking about it. So our website is available at www.caldo.ca. In the menu section, there is a button called Tools to Apply. The Tools to Apply is where you will find a lot of resources about the things that I've been mentioning here. You also have information about our universities, about coming to Canada, living in Canada. But since you are, if you are already in the process of applying, the Tools to Apply is the main section for you. For those of you that have never contacted us, you can send us an email to that email that you see there, graduate.coordinator@caldo.ca, with any questions that you may have. You can write us in Portuguese and Spanish. We will reply to you most likely in English, but you can write us in your native language. So don't be shy, just send us your questions, and make sure that you don't have any doubts if you are in the process of applying or if you are in the process of selecting any program of studies, because that's basically what we are here for. We are here to assist you in making sure that you make an informed decision. So, like I mentioned before, this initial section was basically just a presentation that I was doing without being able to answer any questions. And now let's open the presentation for any questions that you may have. So, if you have any questions, you have a chat box on your screen, and you can type your questions in Spanish, Portuguese, or English as you prefer. I will just open the box so that I can see better your questions and you also can see them. And I can start with Carlos. Carlos is asking, for the language test, as IELTS, is it best to take it before I start an application or after I reach out to a supervisor, so it can be sent directly to the university? So Carlos and everyone, the language tests, the IELTS and the TOEFL, they are valid for 2 years. Okay, so if you did your test after June 2016, it's still valid. Okay, so you can use that test anytime. You don't need to be taking that when you are applying. The way it works, like I mentioned, is you need to contact the center where you did where you took the test, and you have to ask them to send the test to the university that you're interested in applying. My advice and my recommendation is that it is best if you take the test before applying, because like that you know exactly if you already meet the minimum requirements or not. It's very it produces a lot of anxiety for a candidate to know that he has already sent everything to the university and now he needs to take the language test and he needs to get a minimum score. That, I think, puts more anxiety on the candidate's shoulders because he cannot fail. So in order to reduce that anxiety and in order to best prepare your application, my recommendation is that you always take the test before applying. In some cases, let's imagine that the university requests a TOEFL of 88 and your TOEFL was 85. Some departments, if you are a very good candidate, if you are able to find a supervisor, might be able to still offer you the admission if the score is not too different from the minimum. Some other universities will probably offer you also the chance, if your score is lower and if the department issue conditional letters, they could offer you the possibility of taking the test. Sorry, taking a course at the university before starting your program in order to level your English level. But please note that for that to happen, you need to come to Canada some months before. You need to take the English course, and obviously that's much more expensive than just taking TOEFL or an IELTS in your home country. So just keep that in mind. Clara is asking if the Cambridge CAE is accepted. Clara, I'm not able to answer if that's accepted or not, because I understand that for most programs it is not, but it might depend on the program that you're interested in. So if you want to send me an email with the exact program that you're interested in, the university, we can confirm if that test is accepted or not. Pierre is asking, if my bachelor degrees are not good, I still have the possibility to enter a master. So all the candidates will need to meet the minimum requirements in terms of academics. So if your average is below 75%, it will be very hard to gain admission into a master program. But if you really want to try, the best option would be the course-based masters. The course-based masters, they don't involve research. And because of that, the admission requirements are sometimes a bit more flexible. However, like I mentioned before, there is no financing from this program, so you will need to pay for the program yourself, either from your personal savings or through a credito. Anyway, the main idea is that there is no credit. However, the course-based master could be the best possibility for the candidates that have averages that are lower than 75% in the pregrado. Calvin is asking, does CALDO provide assistance with contacting a supervisor if the student intends to get department funding? No, Kelvin, we don't. We can assist you with giving you tips on where to find the supervisor's information, but we don't connect with the professor or the university in those cases. You need to do it yourself. Alvaro is asking, what is the minimum level of English I need to study in Canada? I want to take a PhD program. So, Alvaro, like I mentioned, if you are taking a TOEFL, you should have around 80 to 90. Okay, the maximum in a TOEFL is 120. Like I also mentioned, the score varies from program to program. Okay, so it's not always the same. So you need to define the program and then confirm what is the level of English that the program requires. Fernanda, in the beginning you mentioned two types of master's, course space and thesis, exactly. Would you know if the course space is the equivalent to the post-graduation lato sensus in Brazil? Fernanda, I'm not able to answer that because I don't know. I know that the course space, the main difference is the research. Is that the thesis you do research and the course you don't do research. But the courses, the classes, they are the same. So everything else is the same. So the professors are the same. The courses are the same. The difference is that because you don't do research, you have more classes. So instead of having, for example, 6 courses during the 2 years, you have, I don't know, 10 or 12. So that's the main difference. Laiz is asking, I already started a master program in Brazil. Would it be possible to transfer some credits if I choose to start another in a Canadian university? That's something to verify with the university, Laiz. I don't have that information. I would say that you would need to send your transcript and eventually see or go to your university in Brazil and see if they have any arrangement with any university in Canada for the equivalencies. Okay, that's probably a good. Go to the international office, o Escritório das Relações Internacionais, and see if they would have, I don't know, any clue as to which Canadian university they have an agreement with. Lourdes is asking, there are scholarships from the Canadian government or candidates will depend on the scholarships from their own countries. So Lourdes, there are scholarships from the Canadian government and most scholarships are available through the supervisors. So the way this works is the professors, they have research grants, so they have funding. And they can use that funding in different ways. They can finance students. They can use the funding to go abroad to conferences or to buy material for their laboratory. Most of the students that are in a scholarship in Canada are using those research funds from the professor. So that's where you will find of the money, is in the professors. That's why I always mention, do not apply to a PhD without a supervisor. Sergio, I would like to ask if the TOEFL score require are different for each school and if there's a minimum score. Yes, they are different and there's a minimum. So I already talked about this. You are, if you were not here since the beginning, tomorrow you will have this presentation available on YouTube, on our channel. So you all receive the link for the presentation so you can just rewind and listen to this part. Fernando, are only bachelor grades taken into consideration for admission into bachelor degrees or the grades from my post degree also? Usually, Fernanda, you need to have a degree to, you need to have a program that gave you a degree to be eligible. So usually for the bacharelado, for the master's program, the university will look at your pregrado, your bacharelado. Okay. So, and they will not look at the full bacharelado, they will look at the last 2 years. Okay, so this is also something for you guys to keep in mind. They are not looking at the full 4 years or 5, they are looking at the last 2. So Kelvin, is there any funding in Brazil for masters? Unfortunately, no, Kelvin. That's something that sometimes we are very frustrated, but unfortunately for Brazilians, there is no master funding that we know of. CNPq and CAP, as our partners in Brazil, they only have scholarships for PhDs, PhD sandwich, and postdocs. Pablo is asking if I have good ideas to write good introduction email to catch the attention of a possible supervisor. Pablo, if you are thinking on applying to a scholarship from your home country, definitely put that on the title of the email. That's a good eye catcher. So student from whatever country, Mexico, Brazil, um, considering scholarship from my country, wants to do research with you, something like that. If you are not able or thinking on doing that, then just try to put your research interests on the title, so that the professor knows that you are a good match for him or for her. Um, Denise is asking, to study a PhD, you need an original thesis proposal. So usually, Denise, what happens is the following. You have an idea for your research, you share it with the professor, and then between the both of you, you will define the final project. Okay, so you don't need to have everything thought of. You just need to have an idea of what you want to do. You need to find supervisors that are aligned with what you want to do and contact them. So that's afterwards, between the both of you, you will basically define whatever you are supposed to do for the project. Marta, how does the supervisor search assistant work? What information do I give to CALDO, and is the difference or advantage from searching myself? So Martha, the advantage between searching yourself is that you will have less work. That's the main advantage. But if you are comfortable searching yourself, that's fine. There is no need to use our services, like I mentioned. Our services are here to assist you. We are not. You don't need to come through CALDO. Okay. Basically, what we need to know to assist you with the supervisor search is what is your academic average. If you already have a language test, what is your research interest? If there are any universities that you are already more interested in, um, and which country are you from? So that's basically it. Once you give us that information, we can give you some preliminary assistance with finding supervisors. So let me just see here, because I'm not able to see the full name, the screen. So Fernando is asking, I have identified a master program which is not listed on the CALDO webpage. However, this one belongs to the University of Toronto. Do I have to submit the application all by myself? So let me take this question to clarify something. So the CALDO webpage does not have all the programs that our universities offer. There are some programs that you might not find there because they are very specific and our search engine does not have it. However, that doesn't mean that we don't provide assistance for that program. We may not, depends on the program that you're looking, but in some cases you might not find the program on our website. Talking about the application. Through CALDO, you do not apply to any program. So we are not an application platform. We are an information platform. The application is always done through the university website. Okay, so you can use the CALDO services from the beginning, since you don't know you don't have any idea which program, up to the end where you already have a supervisor and you are comfortable to apply. But then when it's the moment to apply, you always do it at the university website like any other candidate. Okay, because the application process is managed by each university individually, so it's done through their websites. Lourdes is asking if the course-based master don't have the supervisors. Yeah, for those programs, you don't need a supervisor. That's another advantage. So because you don't need a supervisor, you just need to define the program and make sure that you meet the minimum admission requirements and you're ready to apply. Just make sure that you do it within the deadline. So Calvin is asking if since there is no master's funding, how can you help students pursue master degree theses that intend to fund from the university or other programs from Canada? So Calvin, what we usually do with candidates for which there is no funding is give them an idea of which are the program options from our universities. So we still provide you with which university for the program that you're looking for. We still provide you with tips on how to apply if you have any questions. So the only thing that we don't do is we don't actively engage with supervisors. That's the only thing. Carolina, I want to know about the thesis. I should have a subject already before I contact the supervisor. Ideally, yes, Carolina. So you should have an idea of what you want to do. If you don't have any idea, it will be hard to find a supervisor because they will want to know what do you want to do. So first, you need to basically define that, and only after you define that, should you start to reach out to professors. Alvaro is asking if candidates can contact supervisors before finishing the master thesis. I already have my credits finished. Yes, definitely, Alvaro. You can contact supervisors right now because you are in the end of your master program. So that's a great time to start contacting professors. So, like I mentioned before, supervisors, it takes time to contact them. So don't expect that you send an email and the next 2 days you get a reply. That's not how it works in most of the cases. You need to be persistent. You need to take some time to make sure that you and they have enough time to reply and to exchange ideas. So right now it's a very good time to apply, and you don't have to have any deadline to finish your master thesis. So what usually happens is between the supervisor and the candidate, you define a starting date. So let's say that you are finishing your master thesis now. So you could define that the best way for you to apply, and sorry, the best time for you to be admitted to start the program will be, for example, September next year, and that will give you enough time to finish your thesis and to gather all the information to apply, including any scholarship that you might consider applying to. So far I have answered all the questions. If anyone still has any question, please feel free to write it down. I can still answer a couple more questions. If you have questions after this presentation, you can also send me an email to the email that I stated in the last slide. Tomorrow, all of you will receive also an email from myself, so you can also reply to that email with any questions that you may have. Calvin is asking about the transcript translation. If it's done by any professional, what should I do if the university asks for the original and my university is not provided? Okay. So Calvin, usually what candidates do is the following. You will need to ask for another copy of your transcript to the university. If by any chance they don't provide you with another copy, which is not very usual, but I don't know, some universities might not do it for some reason, you need to inform the university in Canada of that limitation and they will provide you some sort of alternative. Okay? You might need to send your original one and then they will send it back or something. Usually universities don't send documents back. So please don't send the original if that's the only one that you have. Okay, so you always need to make sure that the university is able to give you an alternative if you are not able to have more than one original. The translation needs to be done by a translator, okay, by a translator that it's recognized in your country. So most language schools will probably have translation services. So usually those people that are working there, they are recognized translators. Reginaldo, how can I get my PhD studies from a full funding? Not sure I understand your question. Reginaldo, like I mentioned, PhD studies are usually funded by the supervisors or by scholarships from your own country, for example. So those are usually the options for funding the PhD programs. So just going back to Calvin, I meant the original hard copy translated. Oh, okay, Calvin. So yes, you will need to send whatever document the translator gives you. Okay, so you cannot send a photocopy of the translation. You need to send the original translation. So whatever you receive from the translator, that's what you will send the university abroad. Carlos, is this some university that I should send an unofficial transcript? Does that mean I can send a transcript with a free translation? No, Carlos, you always need to send a transcript with a translation that it's official. Eventually, some universities might say that you might send a preliminary document that it's not official or something like that. But in the end, you will always need to send the real, like the original documents or a certified copy or something that the university accepts. Okay. So this is the last question I will be answering now. Link 5, is it possible to apply for postdoctorates, and is there a possibility of obtaining scholarship or support to do it? So the postdoc is another process. The postdoc, usually you just need to get in touch with the professor, and if the professor accepts you, you will then apply to the postdoc. But it's a totally different process, and I'm not entirely familiar with the postdoctoral application process. However, as long as you are able to find a professor, the professor might be the one that will give you the information on the possibility of gaining a scholarship. Okay, so that's where the key element is for admission into a postdoc, is to find a supervisor that is interested in working with you. So with this, I would like to end this presentation. Thank you for your time. I hope that this was helped you clarify questions that you have, or help make it a bit easier the process of applying. Please keep in mind that applying to a PhD in a foreign country to a master program is requires a lot of persistence. Okay, so don't feel frustrated if sometimes things don't go as planned, or if there is a document that it's still missing. You know, a lot of your colleagues have done it. We have a lot of people from several countries from Latin America studying at our universities. So you can definitely be one of them in the near future. So please keep a positive spirit and use our services whenever you need them. Okay, like I mentioned, we are totally free, and we are more than welcome to assist you in way that we can. So thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the day, and hopefully I will receive any emails if you have any questions. Thank you so much.